Good evening on this Tuesday. Good evening on this Tuesday. I hardly ever do a video on a Tuesday, but I wanted to share this. I was having a powerful conversation on today, and as the conversation was going on, don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but as we were talking, God began to give me the vision of people being in a confined area, and that confined area is cutting off their growth. It's cutting off their transformation. It's affecting their shifting and their elevation. And he began to break it down to me in a way where he began to just show me like people going in their office, just shutting the door, cutting everything off. People going into their cubicle, just, disengaging their self and, driving to work and having maybe 2 or 3 options to take, but you just take the same way. Stepping inside the building, you have 2 different ways that you can take, maybe the elevator, the stairs, or a main hallway, but you take one specific way. And it was another thought that he gave me. And he began to share with me that people don't realize that doing the same thing every day, the same way, it's limiting your experiences, it's limiting your challenges, it's limiting your connections, it's limiting your conversations, it's limiting your lessons, and it is limiting the spaces that he wants to take you into. The confined mindset, the confined heart, the confined soul of not wanting to open up to maybe doing things a different way or letting different people into your spaces or challenging yourself to a new level. It's cutting off what God wants to bring into your life. He began to share with me that part of this reason is because of the level of hurt that you've endured, the level of disappointment that you have endured, the level of trust that you have suffered from, the level of fear that resides in you, the level of shame and guilt and denial and failure and fault and rejection, all of the things that are inside of you that has now confined you to a certain place where you cut people off. You cut room to grow, room to explore, room to challenge yourself, room to believe in yourself, room to exercise your potential, room for connection, room for growth, room to welcome support into your life, room for reconciliation, room for forgiveness, room for change, room for healing, room for elevation, room for shifting from a confined mindset, having a confined heart, dealing with a confined body and soul, not being willing to step outside the norm and do something different. You walk past the same people every day, but you have a selected few that you speak to, not even knowing that the person that you may not speak to may need to hear a word that you have to offer. But so often we pay attention to what everybody else has to say about a person, and we let that become our judgment of it. When so often we begin to find out that people are not as bad as other people say. We just needed to sit down and have a conversation with them ourselves. A confined mindset, confined willingness, confined determination to exceed the norm, to step outside of the norm, to release yourself from your comfort zone and allow God to guide you, allow your faith to grow, allow your trust and belief to grow, and to allow God the room to show up and do some wonderful things in your life. But here's the thing, we have to be willing to step outside the norm. We have to be willing to let go of our desires and trust God for his will over our life. Confinement. What source of confinement, what area of confinement are you dealing with today? Is it the relationship? Is it the marriage? Is it a friendship? Is it a family ship? Is it finances? Is it the mental, the physical, the emotional, the spiritual? What level of confinement are you limiting yourself to? Possibly because that's all you've known. Possibly because that's all you've been around. Possibly because that's all you welcome. And God is using me on today to say, try something different. Walk into that workplace tomorrow and speak to somebody that you've never spoken to. Encourage somebody that you've never encouraged. Do something different tomorrow. Stop at a different restaurant. Take a different route to work. Try a different routine tomorrow and see if anything feels different. Because when you're doing the same thing every day, sometimes it gets boring. Sometimes you lose the drive of things. And God began to show me earlier today through this conversation that even in my personal life, I was dealing with a sense of confinement, that he had to allow difficulty to come into my life and to stir up things so that I can be removed from an old way of functioning, so that he can introduce a new way of functioning where it could bring the opportunity for new conversations, for a new perspective, for a new outlook, new motivation, new determination, and new commitment. There are some conversations, there are some lessons, there's some experiences, there's some challenges, there's some spaces, there's some rooms, and I think I said connections and conversations that God wants to introduce to us. But we're holding it up by staying in our confined spaces. We're holding it up by staying in our confined spaces. So on today, I challenge you to do something different tomorrow. Try something different tomorrow. Welcome something different tomorrow into your routine and see if anything different comes from it. Be blessed. I love you. Until next time, be safe.